In today's digital world, businesses rely heavily on electronic data, whether it's customer details, transaction records, or the documents, emails, and other information used to run and develop your business. Until recently, managing the risks associated with this data had mostly been down to your IT team, but with new security threats and increasing regulation, that needs to change. In our latest head-to-head, two of our experienced senior analysts, Brian Betts and Tony Locke, discuss how modern data protection is now a concern for everyone in the organization, especially business executives, and how with the right approach, you can not only respond to the latest imperatives, but also create new business advantage.
Data protection today, is it not just still a techie problem? Is it really a business problem?
It's a technical challenge, of course it is, but it's not a case anymore of stick a tape in the machine, take it out, stick it on the shelf. It's a business imperative. Data is the lifeblood of any modern business, and you've got to look after it.
So the fact that in the past we've maybe overlooked this, taken data protection for granted, it's time to change?
Yes,
I mean, if it's time to change, why now?
Why now, indeed. We're seeing significant changes in the drivers around here. We've always had a bunch of these. There's always been the business operations objectives, and for many years now there's been legal and compliance objectives. They are ramping up right now. This is a major problem, and if it's not pushing your organisation to do something about it, or if it hasn't already pushed your organisation to do something about it, then you're running yourself a bit close for time.
Is this because, there's real business value in data and people have access to their data all the time, and so therefore, the classical reasons for doing data protection have become more serious, i.e. it's got to be always available and instant recovery? Absolutely.
We've all heard the stories and verifiable stories of businesses which have failed as a result of losing their data and not being properly backed up. It's now even more serious than that. And the interesting thing is that although, as we said, it's a technology challenge, what the technologists have to implement, only the business can define policies, only the business can say which data is important, which data is risky. The technologists then go and implement that.
Are there any examples on, say, the risk that's changing?
Big example is ransomware. We saw this attack the National Health Service, the ambulance service, in a fairly major way. People couldn't get ambulances because all their systems were crashed. We're talking about a virus here that gets in probably through email, but sometimes through websites. It then encrypts your data and demands that you pay a ransom to get the key.
And we all know that paying ransoms is not a really good idea.
Not only is paying ransoms not a good idea, it may not actually work because the authorities may already have closed down the payment route, or it may be that there is no key, or they won't send you the key. There are plenty of stories of people who've paid the ransom and got nothing in response.
So in essence, the only real protection here against ransomware is to have very good data protection in the first place. And what about on the compliance and the regulatory side? Is there anything big happening there?
GDPR, the EU's General Data Protection Regulation, although it's an EU regulation, it affects anyone who stores and processes the data of EU residents. So actually that's an awful lot of companies all around the world. It means that you have to pay special attention to any data that is personally identifiable. And that's not just data that has someone's name in, it's data that you could then take and perhaps overlay with some other information and work out who it refers to.
So could this be things like IP addresses, device IDs of your smartphones, things like that? So there's a whole spectrum here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so then if GDPR is becoming such a big issue, and the expansion of PII is such a big issue, we've had data protection requirements around data for a long time, but people have often overlooked them and decided we'd rather pay the fine if we get caught out.
Yeah,
is that going to change with GDPR, or is it going to be the same?
Yes, this is going to change. The liability has been much tightened up. The liability is specifically with the business leaders now. You can't disclaim it. You can pass off implementation, you can pass off the technology to other people to look after. You can even hire consultants or another third party as your data protection officer to supply that necessary expertise and specialist knowledge of data protection law, but you can't disclaim the liability. And the liability is massive. We're talking about fines, a maximum of €20 million or 4% of your turnover.
And that's your worldwide turnover.
Your worldwide turnover. It is already triggering change in a lot of organisations. The question is it going to be the right kind of change? Are they going to go for a stopgap solution, some kind of point thing, pay someone a stack of money to come in and say, right, we've now covered you for GDPR? Or are they going to try and use it as a catalyst for making serious change?
So does that mean then that data protection could help here, and is there any upside to it?
Absolutely, data protection can help, because modern data protection is way different from what a lot of us are used to.
Okay, so therefore on the modern data protection, how is it different from old data protection? What's changed? What can it do that we couldn't do in the past?
Well, the first thing that we need to do is we need to find all of our data. We need to discover data, whether it's on our computer systems, maybe even on your people's laptops, duplicate copies that have been edited but not resaved, anything like this. There is a whole stack of data out there, and any of it could get you into trouble. So you need to discover it all. You need to then classify it, work out which is covered by, for example, GDPR. One of the interesting things here is metadata. Metadata is data about data, and it's how these systems keep track of stuff. What we can do with the metadata is we can go on to put business policies in place. We can start looking at other ways of using that data to create business value, and of course we get visibility into what we've got. But one of the key things here is ideally it all needs to be in one place.
So we're talking here really about turning data protection into the basis for information management. So sounds great, but again, sounds like it might be time consuming and expensive. Is there any other reasons for doing this apart from protecting ourselves against ransomware and helping us address GDPR? Are they big enough triggers, or is there any upside to this?
So this is the opportunity to make sure that spend does more than just patch a hole.
Right, so it's not just about ticking the box and protecting yourselves against the lawyers and the fines. The upside is that potentially we could actually exploit the data more effectively than we've in the past, because we know that people have had issues finding data and actually using it to do new things with.
If you're going to do the job properly, it would be crazy not to look for other ways that you can exploit the data.
Okay, so it really comes down to then data protection, modern data protection could really give you value as well as protection.
That's right. It's getting all your data, your backups, your archive, all in one place. It's making sure you know what you've got and what's there. It's making sure you know what's personally identifiable and is therefore covered by the likes of GDPR. And then it's going on, because you've got it all now in one place, it's going on from that to start to develop added value where possible.
You know where to look to find it.
That's it.
If you found our discussion interesting and want to learn more about any of the points highlighted by Brian and Tony, you'll find additional details in our report entitled Data Protection Revisited, a Risk Review and Investment Guide for Business Executives, which is available via the link shown here. Thanks for watching.